This is Kenya's the #1 opera in the world, according to Thorin. You're watching Thorin channel, that is also known as the #1 existence fan in the world.
NRG star player Cirque from Bulgaria posted 63 ADR average damage per round over the 3 maps of his team's series against Narvi in the elimination game at DreamHack Masters Stockholm, meaning that his team is now out of the tournament. They obviously won't be at the major because they didn't get through the minor. And recently they won a tournament, IEM Shanghai, which had a lot of prize money, but didn't have a lot of top teams there. He was the MVP of that tournament. So with this guy having been so good online in NA for NRG, having some good performances at times at LANs, blowing everyone away at this like tier 2 LAN with like C and D class teams there at best, and now coming into a big tournament, getting a shot against one of the best teams in the world and delivering a fairly poor performance for what you expect of someone who's going to be a star player and going to be a big-time LAN player. It's one thing if people just say, well, he's inexperienced or whatever, but no. What people say is they say, well, look at his age. How can you expect him to accomplish anything? You know, he's so young. This has been, though, a familiar refrain from North American fans, not just in CS, but particularly in CS, but in North American esports in general. Basically, it goes, he's only 16, give him time. He's only 17, give him time. He's only 18, give him time. He's only 19. I've heard everyone go right up until 20, and some people even try to push it beyond that. But I think once you get a 2 at the beginning of your number, it gets a bit unreasonable. You can really suggest, like, give him time. You know, there's people in war in like 18-year-old and stuff. So the problem with this is we've seen the same pattern repeat over and over again. In 1.6, it was with nothing. In CSGO, Stewie2K, Elige, now Twists, Cirque, Ethan. The problem is that it isn't an age thing as to whether you can compete against the best teams, compete on LAN, or compete in high-pressure matches. If it is, then it seems to be an age thing, which is only cultural to North America and the age that people are in their maturity level when they're 16, 17, 18, 19 in North America. Not for the rest of the world, because there are so many examples, as I'm going to give you, of players where having a 1 in front of their number didn't seem to affect them being good players on LAN, good play against top teams, sometimes the best players in the entire world, and even event champions. Doesn't seem, quite frankly though, like the players people want us to wait for and give the excuse for and give time to actually do blossom in the way that the players I'm going to tell you about from Europe do and did, and therefore it doesn't seem like age was just a factor. There was something about their character or something about the environment they've been brought up in, the expectations that are placed upon them that mean they don't perform as much when they're young and they don't actually blossom even when they're given. It's not like they're late bloomers. They don't tend to get as good, quite frankly. So I do think age is a factor, but as with most complicated situations, like how a human being performs at his peak level or not on LAN versus the best teams in the world with the whole world watching, that's not really going to be a single variable analysis. Like, you're going to need a multivariate analysis. You're going to have to consider many different factors. So whether age is one or not, I don't really buy it, because first of all, the expectations for these guys come from their skills. Like, we've seen what Cirque's done online. We've seen what he did at Shanghai. We've seen what he done the odd game against top teams. So why doesn't he do it now? That's where the expectation comes from. I mean, when he was dominating in Shanghai, he didn't go, well, doesn't count because he's not old enough. So that can't be actually, he can't actually really be that good. No, it was fine that he was dominating there, right? Because you just saw him do it. So that doesn't really make sense. Then you've got to add in this notion that like maturity or ability to play in big games under pressure like comes linear with age doesn't really make a lot of sense. It's about as silly as the idea that you are like a man in the responsible adult sense just when you hit age 18 or age 21, depending on what country you're in. Doesn't work that way. Some people, it never happens for. Some people, it takes a drastic life experience, maybe late in their life, 25, 28. Some people, it might happen when they're 12. Maybe in some war-torn village, their family gets killed, they have to get a fucking AK-47, go to war, provide for their family, whatever it might be. It doesn't seem as though it's linear. It seems as though it's a mixture of cultural factors and then the specifics of who the person is. So first of all, let's look at those examples I gave you before to show what I said about how they don't really develop. It's not like they're just late bloomers because, okay, nothing. I know a lot of you watching who are CSGO fans are going to think this is blasphemy because you didn't watch 1.6 and you presumably don't know what you're talking about. But nothing was never at any point in time in CS 1.6 a top 10 player in the world. He was arguably not even a top 20 player in the world. I know one year he got nominated for the Turtle multiple esports player of the year award, but that was just because they wanted to make it look as diverse as possible with all different countries. He was listed ahead of people like, I think it was either Get Right or Forest in 2009, when they were like indisputably top 5 players in the world, and he was ahead of one of them for player of the year. So no, this guy was a very good player online. He was a good player in NA, but once he got to international lands, he never actually fully delivered. He never had those superstar performances except the odd occasion. He wasn't like a Neo or Forest, whoever you want to pick out, MSX, Real, Korgu, Solo. There's tons of them you can pick out. He was never on their level in their class, quite frankly. Then you go to CSGO, Stewie 2K. So okay, the guy's only 20 now, so that means when he came into the scene, 2016, he was only 18 years old, right? Here's the thing, he already exceeded expectations by becoming a proper pro, but he was at his best in his entire career so far, a top 10 individual player, and that's at his best. Then you look at the fact that he was never close to the best player in the world. It was always debatable whether he's the best in NA. He hasn't really blossomed like a Symbol, a Nico, whoever you might want to pick. Then you look at Elige. Remember, he's already 20, so there's no excuses by the logic of it's just his age. Then look at Elige. He is only 21 years old now, barely. It was in July. So back when he made that run to MLG Columbus in the semi-finals, he would have been 18 at the time. And then at the next major, which I think would have been, would have been just before his birthday when he was still 18, would have been when he made the final. Admittedly, I had simple hard carry in there. And the best in his career, he's also been top 10 player, even then disputably. And that's about it. Not a super hard carry like a Nico, not a super hard carry like a Simple, not a young champion like an Element, a Real, a godlike player like Cooler and Flat. No, never got to that level. Very good player, sure. Great player, godlike player, elite player. Hasn't happened yet, and he's already 21. Now, Twist, Cirque, and Ethan, obviously can't comment on because they aren't actually old enough. They are the young examples now to be able to give you an example of where they went to. Now let's look at European Counter-Strike players, though. So we'll go back in time for some of these, but then we'll have some CSGO examples too for everyone who doesn't know 1.6 and think it's just because it was 1.6. Whereas actually, arguably, in 1.6 there was more pressure on you in as much as you went to less international lands and you went abroad less and people weren't pros and didn't know how to work. And therefore, the pressure was immense on you because you might have 1 or 2 chances to make it. And if you blow it, you're just done. You don't get like now where you get to play loads of tier 2 lands. You get to start to warm up by playing the lower end of the top teams. Then you play the big teams. Then you get the performances when the rest of your team comes on. Like, no, you were thrown right in the mix there. So Element, who by the way is only 32 right now, and the guy's been retired for some like 12 years or something mental, he is someone where at age 15, almost 16, he was playing, he's Norwegian, but was playing in a top Swedish team, Game Online, in the final of CPL Summer 2002, one of the majors in Counter-Strike. At age 17, the next year, he won both of the CPL majors that year, and the guy retired in terms of like full-time pro playing Counter-Strike at age 21, having won like, 4 or 5 world championships, been in many big tournament finals, one of the best players of all time. He retired when he was 21. That's the age of Legion is right now. We're still waiting for him to become like one of the best players in the world. Another Norwegian player, Real. Very young himself, only 29 years old now, and has also been retired for quite a long time. This guy was age 16 when he won CPL Europe UK stop. Now, when I say UK stop, don't get confused and think, all right, it was actually UK qualified. No. This was a big European tournament. It had in attendance the SK Gaming team from Sweden who'd won CPL Summer and won CPL Winter that year, CPL Winter being a major. So the back-to-back winning CPL winning SK was in attendance. He won this tournament as a 16-year-old, hard carrying a team that had done nothing in history. Team 9 Norway won a big tournament. Literally the next year went on to become one of the absolute best players in the world. Nasu, currently the coach of... Who is he the coach of? Adolf. Oh, Heroic, that's right. Formerly of Godsent, and before that, Penta. Better known, perhaps, as Lurpus's brother. So this guy, who, quite a young guy himself, he's only 28 years old now, I think. When he was 16 years old, was already a strong international level player, going to big tournaments, getting big placings, one of the carries of the Wings/Serious Gaming team. By the time he was 17 and 18, he wasn't the main star player, but he was, again, incredibly versatile player. Think of a Zipnix, but with better fragging. one of the best players in the world in that respect for his role, going to massive tournaments, deep finishes in majors, tons of big international, either championships or top placings. Another Nordic name, we've got Wimp, the guy who currently works as some sort of head front office person for North. He is only 30 himself now. That shows how young these guys are, because they're not even that old now. They're all younger than me still. So when he was just turned 16, he won ESWC, one of the majors in 1.6 with the Titans. He then later that year got a silver medal at the World Cyber Games, another major. By the time he was 20, 4 years later on, he was one of the key linchpin pieces, very versatile all-round player in MTW, the best team of the year, 2008, and one of the best teams of all time. Now we've got a couple of names you're going to know, Forrest and Neo. So Forrest is obviously age 30 at the moment. When he was 17, he won WEG Season 2 in South Korea with Big Rip. By the end of the year, he'd had a top 8 finish, I think it was 6th place or something at CPL. The year after that, he was one of the best players in the world at age 18. Obviously went on to an incredibly storied career. Neo, a little bit older than the rest, 31 years old now. He was 19 years old when he won the World Cyber Games in 2006 with a team from Poland. Poland had never accomplished anything truly great in any major at that point in time. He's the hard carry, and he won the major over the dominant team of that year, NIP, at age 19. Now, 19 isn't 15, 16, sure, but 19 is the age of some of the people we're talking about giving time to still. Stewie 2K is older than 19. Elige is older than 19. So you can see in 1.6, many elite great players who were the big talent of their time, they didn't need that time that you're talking about and crying about. They were just the best already. They were the best as soon as they got to the tournaments. They delivered on the expectations they showed you in the big games as well as the smaller games. There was no like, oh, sorry, Real, you can't win CPL UK, mate. You're 16. Oh, what's that element? Ah, oh, you're only... What was it? What did I say he was? Like 15 or something? You're only 15. You can't be playing the final of a major, mate. You wait a few years. Wait 3 or 4 years. Then you'll be old enough. Then we expect it. No, they just went there because they were that good. That's the point. They were that good at the game. There's no limit as to how good you can be based on age. CSGO, you might think, hey, can you give me some examples from CSGO? I damn sure can. How about Simple? Heard of that guy? He's only the best player in the world. Probably going to go on to be the best individual player to ever touch any version of Counter-Strike. Well... when he was barely 17, he was beating the dominant Fnatic team who'd won all the lands before at DreamHack Winter 2014 to get his team out of first place at that major with the #1 seed. Then, when he was about, I think it was when he was 18, was when he made it to the final of the major, ESL1 Cologne, carrying an NA team. Guy barely spoke English at the time. Made top 4 at the other major that year, again with an NA team, very dysfunctional team that accomplished nothing internationally before him. Then after that, he was age 19, he joined his hometown team, Navi, won a 250k line, again age 19, so, 2 years younger than Elige is now. Age 20, well, he is currently 20. Won big lands, deep finishes at majors, best player in the world, best player maybe ever. Everyone is astonished at what he's doing. He's only 20. What are we waiting for? To talk about Nico, second best player in the world right now, 21 years old currently. At age 18, he was playing for Mouse Sports, German team. He's from Bosnia, doesn't speak German. And he was wrecking at Sivo Professional Season 8 finals versus Navi in the group stage, had to play against Virtus Pro in the finals. Age 19, he was contender for best player in the world. I think he was the best player in the world. While in Mouse Sports, again, German team, bunch of bum-ass players who never would accomplish anything elsewhere, either for years until they changed their role, until they got better talent on their squads. What was he waiting for? Nothing, because he just got it done, didn't he? How about current player Rops? Rops is currently only 18 right now, and has only been 18 for something like 9 months. He has won lands, international lands. He's been in the major playoffs. He's had numerous top 4s. He's had big individual performances at tournaments and against star players. Now, admittedly, he's not the best player in his team. I'll give you that one. So that's a bit harsh, maybe compared to Elysian to a show. I'll give you that one. That one's more tenuous. Now, listen, it's not like there are no NA examples. In fact, when I tell you these NA examples, you'll realize that's why the excuse of age doesn't matter, because these guys got it done when they were young, and they were from NA, and they were Counter-Strike players. So how about Volcano? You know the guy who helped design Cash in CSGO? Well, he's now 31 years old, but when he was 16, he took Zex, a team that had never internationally had a placing in the top 3 at a major, and they took a stand-in to ESWC, the first ever ESWC, one of the majors in Counter-Strike, and he made it to the final. He later, or age 16 rather, he then, a couple of years later, went on to win back-to-back WCGs, also majors, one of them in Condition Zero, one in Condition Source. How about K-Sharp? You've all heard of K-Sharp, right? Just went in the Hall of Fame. 34 years old now. When he was 17 is when he was playing at CPL Winter 2001, biggest tournament in history at that point in time. Playing in a final where first place is 50k, second place is 25k. We all remember map 1 of that final on Nuke, where the guy went balls deep on NIP, the best team we'd ever seen in history, with Heaton and Potty all in their fucking prime, and he just went off on Nuke completely. He was dominating them from the CT set. He was 17 years old. What was he waiting for? Jack shit. Now let's look at some other esports. I actually did an article about this. I'll put in the description box below, a couple of years back for On Gamers. But if you look at other esports, it gets ridiculous. So how about Quake? You know, Quake, incredibly intense 1v1 game. All the pressure's on you. You can't just play bad and have some teammate carry it. You got to do it all yourself. It's strategical. It's skill-based. You're playing on big stage setups. Well, let's look at some of these guys. So the Belarusian player Cypher, when he was barely age 16, made it to the final of ESWC, one of the majors, in Quake 4. Then, let's go and look what he did, 2 years later. At age 18, he was the best player in the world in Quake 3, looked like the best player ever, comparable to Simple in CSGO now, and nobody knew how anyone was going to beat this guy. That's at age 18. Now, how about looking to Poland? Avek, one of my favourite players. This is a guy who at age 16 beat Toxic to win a WVSG stop, WVSG being the big Quake tour. Toxic was the dominant player at the time, winning literally every single LAN, and most people couldn't even get a series off him. Avek comes in, 16 years old, plays his bully, aggressive style, just straight up beats the guy, doesn't he, 2 times. Then he goes 2 weeks later to ESWC, one of the big majors, beats Cooler, incredibly tenured, all-time great Quake player, one of the best Quake 4 players as well, and wins that tournament, one of the majors. Guy whose style of play, famously, was a no-fair style of play. Even at age 16, you couldn't fuck with this guy. He was the one putting pressure on you. Then how about, we've referenced him already, Cooler. So when Cooler was 16 years old, he beat 0-4, then the dominant Quake 3 player, in the World Cyber Games 2002 group stage, helping eliminate him. Then, the next year, still age 16, he played the very same 0-4 in the final of the first ESWC, one of the big tournaments in Quake 3. He beat him handily in the final, became the world #1 at age 16 years old. And what was the hallmark of Cooler's game? Yes, intelligence, and he had a good LG, wasn't very good with rail at the time. His hallmark was he was always composed under pressure. He didn't break down. He had his best game when it was a high pressure game, and the opponent's the one that broke down. 16 years old. Now let's look to Asia, and we're going to now talk about StarCraft and some MOBA games, so like League of Legends. So a player called Mind, a Terran player, won the GOM TV MSL Season 3. So the MSL and the OSL were the big individual tournaments in StarCraft Brood War, which had an incredibly competitive scene with lots of players playing very high salaries. Some individual players were making $300,000. Now, back in 2007 at this tournament, he beat Bisu, the #1 player in the world, and the 2-time champion of this very tournament back to back to back. In this final, had earlier beaten Savior, then thought of as one of the very greatest players of all time, godlike Bonjour Zerg player, all to win this tournament at age 16. How about Flash? I know you've heard of him. Well, when he was 14 years old, another Terran player, he qualified for an OSL, the most prestigious individual tournament in Korea. When he'd barely turned 15, he was in the semi-finals of the same tournament, playing against the eventual champion GG player, and took him to 5 games, a 3-2 series, but lost. Earlier in the tournament, he had beaten Bisu, then the #1 ranked player in the world, to get to the semi-finals. What did he do next year when he was 15? Just went and won an OSL, the biggest title you can win. And he did it in the fastest time ever in the history of StarCraft at that point in time, and he did it over Stork, one of the best players in the world and one of the all-time great players for the Protoss race. Now, how about a guy called Lenok, Zerg player in StarCraft 2? At age 16, he won MLG Providence, the big year-end grand final for the MLG circuit with massive prize money, and he's placing ahead of all the best players in the world. Goes back home, makes it to the final of GSL Code S, the most difficult competition in the world to compete in. How about a player called Life, a Zerg player, now sadly banned like Xavier? Well, when he was 15 years old, he won the GSL Code S Season 4 for 2012, hardest competition in StarCraft 2 to win, over MVP, the most decorated champion, then and now in the GSL, in the grand final, age 15. How about Uzi I? If you know League of Legends, you know this guy. Amazing Chinese AD carry, still one of the best players in the world now, still plays for arguably the best team in the world, Royal Never Give Up, who just won MSI. Well, at age 16, he qualified for the Season 3 World Championship and then hard carried his team to the final there, including beating out Fnatic, who were the best European team at the time, with legends like Soaz and Expeke there. He went the next year to the final of Worlds again at age 17, again hard carrying, this time a team that had 2 Koreans and that couldn't even speak Chinese and were using pings on the map to communicate, beating out some very good teams again. How about finally another StarCraft 2 player, Young Maru? Not even that old now, still a top player now, one of the biggest prize winners of all time. Well, at age 16 in StarCraft 2, he won the OSL, a big prestigious tournament, only 16 years old, another Terran player. Now, I do think some of these guys do need some more time to get to their potential, to get to the maximum of their level. Just as many of the names I've listed who did amazing things still got better over the next few years. But that's not the point that we're making here. It's that age is not the overriding excuse or an excuse for not living up to expectations and potential you have already shown you can do elsewhere. That's something about you as a person, your individual life journey and personality. It ain't about your age and how long ago your mother spat you out on this green earth. So I think personally you can't use it as the overriding excuse, especially when it's for underperformance or nerves, because that isn't necessarily about age, even though age could be a factor. This video was kindly supported by Dean Tanglis, Gardner Wilson, Andreas Snazore Westerlund, Alex Adams, Eddie Wingfors, Daniel Yordanov, Robert Baxter, Travis Greb, Kyla Harris, James Harding, Caesar, and special thanks go out to Matt Shakowski and Jerky's Minion in particular. Want teasers for my upcoming content? How about asking me a question for my monthly AMA? Do you want to take part in a discussion about esports with me? How about suggesting a topic or a guest for my content? Put your money where your mouth is and join the Scrilluminati today.